Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty heavy, actually. It's Theodor Adorno's concept of the culture industry.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging one. We're diving into his essays, really trying to get to the heart of this, well, frankly, pretty controversial argument he makes.
Which is basically that mass culture isn't really popular art that bubbles up from below.
Exactly. He argues it's more like a system, an ideological force designed from the top down.
Okay, so let's start right there. With the name, he called it the culture industry. Why that specific term?
Well, it's crucial. He and Horkheimer coined it back in, 1947, and they specifically chose culture industry instead of mass culture.
Okay.
And they did that very deliberately. They wanted to shut down any idea that this culture just, springs spontaneously from the masses like folk art or something.
I see. So mass culture sounds too organic, too from the people.
Precisely. Culture industry puts the emphasis squarely on the fact that it's manufactured, it's planned, produced, imposed from above. It's a product.
Got it. So the kind of immediate takeaway for you, the listener, is that Adorno is saying you're not getting what you necessarily want, but what the industry has planned for you to want.
Yeah, it's a bit like your streaming recommendations, maybe. But, for everything. He argues this industry is incredibly effective at integrating consumers, making them sort of cogs in the machine.
Okay, so let's dig into that machine. How does it work? Because we're not just talking about separate movie studios or record labels.
Right.
Right. Adorno sees something bigger.
Oh, much bigger.
Yeah.
He sees this huge systematic economic structure. He points out how these cultural products are made more or less according to plan.
Planned how?
Planned for mass consumption. And what makes it all work so smoothly, he says, is modern technology and this huge concentration of economic and administrative power.
Right.
It means all the different parts, film, music, news, everything, they fit into each other, creating this system that's, as he puts it, almost without a gap.
Hang on, though. A system without gaps. Doesn't that just sound like, well, efficiency, like streaming a movie instantly? Isn't that good?
Sure.
Good for us, convenient.
Adorno would say that efficiency isn't really for you, the consumer, it's for control. The lack of gaps means there's no space left for anything truly alternative or spontaneous that hasn't already been, vetted and standardized by the system.
Okay, so the convenience is kind of a side effect or maybe even a tool of the control?
That's closer to his view, yeah. And that brings us to the core economic point, the thing that he thinks really kills off genuine art, the dominance of profit.
The bottom line.
Exactly. For Adorno, these cultural things, they're governed by what he calls the principle of the realization is value.
Okay, realization is value. Let's unpack that a bit. What does that actually mean for, like, a movie or a song?
It just means making money is the primary goal, full stop. The profit motive overrides everything else, the artistic content, the structure, the message, whatever.
But surely art has always had some connection to money. People had patrons, sold paintings.
True, but Adorno argues that, historically, art might have been also a commodity. It sought profit, maybe, but that wasn't its defining essence. Its value was also internal, aesthetic.
But now?
Now, he says, that's changed. The new thing is the direct, undisguised priority of profit, calculated effectiveness. So cultural things aren't also commodities anymore. They are commodities through and through.
Wow.
And that shift, he believes, just erodes, maybe even eliminates the autonomy of art. Art can't just be anymore. It has to sell.
And this profit motive is so strong it even smashes together high art and low art, things that were kept separate for ages.
Yeah, he talks about a forced integration. High art, like classical music or serious literature, loses its seriousness because it gets caught up in speculation about its marketability, how to package Bach for the masses.
Right.
And at the same time, low art, which maybe once had a kind of rebellious energy, loses that edge too. It gets sanitized, controlled, brought into the system. Any real resistance is smoothed over.
Okay, so the system plans the product, makes it efficiently, standardizes it, all driven by profit. But how does it sell this to us? We're always told companies are responding to our demand, that the customer's king.
Adorno just flat out rejects that. He says the masses, the audience, they're secondary. They're an object for calculation, like data points, an appendage of the machinery.
So the industry isn't serving the public's desires.
No, it's shaping them, determining what you consume. Even the term mass media, he thought, was kind of a diversion, shifting the focus onto something that sounds harmless.
That sounds, yeah, incredibly top-down. But you look around today, things like YouTube, TikTok, doesn't that allow for more spontaneous stuff? Why was he so certain it's all imposed?
Well, I think he'd argue that even if individuals can create content now, The forms that culture takes are still largely standardized by the industry framework.
How so?
He clarifies that industry here isn't necessarily about factory production lines, it's more sociological. It's about the standardization of the thing itself.
Right.
Like the formula for a Hollywood blockbuster, or the predictable beats in a reality TV show. He mentions the Western genre. Everyone knows the tropes, the structure. It's that standardized framework, plus the rationalized distribution methods.
So the template remains the same, even if the paint job changes.
Pretty much. And because the template is the same, the industry needs to constantly create the illusion of novelty. So what gets presented as progress or the incessantly new is, for Adorno, just a disguise for an eternal sameness.
Different packaging, same product inside.
You got it. It's masking a structure that hasn't really changed since profit took over completely.
And to sell the same old, they lean hard on celebrities, right? The star system.
Oh, absolutely. Pushing these supposedly great personalities, the heartthrobs. And the crucial point here is that this manufactured individuality itself reinforces the ideology.
How does that work?
It creates this illusion that the film or the song offers you a unique escape, a sanctuary from immediacy in life. But really, that escape route is completely designed and controlled by the very system you're trying to escape from. The star makes you feel connected, but it's a connection mediated entirely by the industry.
Okay, that helps understand his critique of technique, too. When he talks about technique in the culture industry, he's not admiring, say, great cinematography for its own sake.
No, not really. Technique in traditional art, for Adorno, is about the internal logic, the structure of the artwork itself, how the parts relate to the whole.
But in the culture industry,
Technique becomes primarily about distribution and mechanical reproduction. How efficiently can we copy and spread this formula? How polished can we make the surface?
and the style that comes out of that is kind of a weird mix.
Yeah, he describes it as combining streamlining, photographic hardness, and precision think, like super slick visuals, but also mixing in individualistic residues, sentimentality, and sort of predigested romanticism.
So it keeps a little bit of that old artistic feeling, the aura, as Walter Benjamin called it.
Exactly, but only as a foggy mist. Just enough to give the calculated product a veneer of authenticity, to cover up the commercial gears grinding underneath.
Right. That foggy mist seems like a good transition to the social effects he was worried about. Because the culture industry often gets defended, right? People say it gives us standards, helps us make sense of a chaotic world. It's, comfort viewing.
Yeah, that's a common defense. It's an ordering factor.
Hmm.
But Adorno sees that defense as, well, deeply flawed and self-serving. He argues the CI actually destroys the very things it claims it's preserving.
What's that example he uses? Something about a tavern.
Right, he says color film demolishes the genial old tavern to a greater extent than bombs ever could. He means the idea, the authentic image, or feeling the imago of the tavern.
Okay, wait. The imago. The mental picture.
Yeah, sort of the soul, the genuine concept of that place, that community. By turning the tavern into this glossy, standardized, cinematic cliché, the industry kills the real thing in our minds and replaces it with a fake, commercialized version.
And the order it provides isn't real order, then.
It's always the order of the status quo. It's about reinforcing what already exists, not finding a better way.
So it's not about finding good order, it's about just accepting the current one.
And this really leads to the main takeaway, the sort of command from the culture industry.
Yeah.
It's, you shall conform, but not conform to some, moral principle or instruction.
Conform to.
Conform to that which exists anyway. Just fit in, go along, don't question things. Conformity replaces critical thinking.
And we see this play out in the stories themselves. He talks about false conflicts.
Totally. Think about almost any standard TV drama or mainstream movie.
Mm-hmm.
Characters face problems, right?
Yeah.
But they're often manufactured conflicts.
Yeah.
And they always get resolved neatly, usually by some benevolent collective stepping in or just by following the existing rules. Everyone ends up okay, achieving this sort of empty harmony. It reassures you that the system works, that fitting in is safe.
But the really disturbing part, isn't it, is that he says people know this. They aren't actually fooled.
That's his idea of the split consciousness. He thinks consumers want the deception, even though it's transparent to them. They kind of force their eyes shut, go along with it, maybe even with a kind of self-loathing.
They know it's fake, but they consume it anyway. Why?
Because, Adorno argues, they cling to these satisfactions which are none at all, these fake resolutions, these easy comforts. Without them, the underlying reality of life under the current system might feel completely intolerable. It's like a necessary illusion to keep going.
So the industry is basically feeding an addiction to distraction.
Or exploiting a vulnerability. He explicitly says the goal is the promotion and exploitation of the ego weakness of the powerless.
Ego weakness. That sounds clinical. What's he mean by that?
It's complex, yeah. But roughly, it means exploiting the anxieties, the insecurities, the need for constant reassurance or distraction felt by people who don't have much real control over their lives, economically or socially.
Feeding on insecurity to keep people passive?
That's the critique. And it leads to what's maybe his most frightening point, the idea that the CI intentionally dumbs down its audience.
That's where the 11-year-old thing comes in.
Yeah, he mentions hearing cynical American film producers admitting they aim their movies at an 11-year-old level, explicitly wanting to make adults into 11-year-olds. Keep the audience immature, uncritical, easily satisfied.
So the end result isn't just, some bad films or catchy but empty songs. It's actually anti-enlightenment.
Exactly. The promise of the Enlightenment was reason, autonomy, progress through technology and knowledge. But here, technical skill, mass communication, all that potential gets turned into mass deception.
Hindering progress instead of helping it.
Right. He says it becomes a tool for fettering consciousness, blocking the development of the autonomous, independent individuals that you actually need for a functioning democratic society.
Right.
The culture industry makes people into a passive mass and then despises them for being exactly what it created.
Wow. Okay, that's a really stark way to look at it. So just to kind of wrap up the main thread, Adorno's culture industry is this huge standardized system driven purely by profit. It churns out commodities disguised as art, replaces genuine popular expression with calculated products, and ultimately pushes conformity over critical thought.
It uses illusions of novelty, individuality, even escape to reinforce the existing order. It turns Enlightenment's tools against Enlightenment's goals.
Reducing the individual, the consumer, to just data, an object.
Pretty much.
Okay. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Adorno notes that eventually the culture industry becomes basically just public relations. It's about manufacturing goodwill itself.
So that every single product, a song, a movie, an influencer's post, isn't just selling itself.
Right? It becomes its own advertisement, constantly selling the system that produced it, selling the consensus. So think about that. With media being everywhere now, constant streams, recommendations, what's the underlying ideology being sold when everything seems geared towards reinforcing an uncritical consensus? Something to chew on next time you hit play.